Hello everyone. Today we're going to discuss the Peavey Classic 30 and some things that you can do to make it a more reliable amp, more giggable amp. There are some modifications to it and some maintenance that needs to be done with it to make it a really good solid amp. And with some work and some time and some effort, as long as you're careful, you can really make this thing a great amp. I will be playing it so you can hear sound samples as well. But I want to make sure that you guys, understand that with this amp, because it is foreign made, it's not made with really high good quality tolerances. There are some things that you can do to improve the reliability, and I'll walk you through a lot of it. So first and foremost, it is a fully tube amp. It's 4 EL84s, 312AX7s. One of the first things that I really recommend doing, especially if you get it from factory, is replace the tubes. It comes with really cheap Chinese ruby tubes. I'm personally not a fan. I have retubed this thing with tongue soles all the way across. It is the same tube complement as a Vox AC30, 3 preamp tubes, 4 power amp tubes, again EL84s. I really recommend the retube. That's huge. Second thing I did was I did a speaker swap. So this is a 2018 model Peavey Classic 30. The 2013 production year moving forward from that is this design. Everything before 2013 is a version 1 design. The version 1 design has 3 circuit boards that are held together with brackets and use jumpers. That design is awful to work on. The jumpers are prone to breaking. If you're having issues with a Peavey Classic 30 made before 2013 and you're willing to do the work, take the chassis out, you have to take all the knobs off. It's a pain in the butt. These things are a nightmare to work on. And I would recommend, looking at all the jumpers, make sure you don't have cold solder joints, make sure that, you've got good connectivity and contact, check for leaking capacitors, things like that. The version 1s are notorious for that. And those jumpers just go bad, they arc, there's all kinds of things that can happen with those. The other thing with the Peavey Classic 30 and the version 1 is tube retention is non-existent. They don't have anything resembling tube retention nor protection. This version 2 actually has a cage that goes around the tubes, which is really important to protect them, makes this version of the amp more giggable. The circuit board in this amp is also better. It's not a U-shaped circuit board with jumpers on it. It's actual flat circuit boards, components directly mounted. There are still 3 circuit boards, but they're all hard mounted and connected really well with good, ribbon and jumper cables and things that are actually fairly well thought out. However, the flaw with this one is in the foreign assembly. And that's what I'm going to talk about. What you probably want to do if you have one of these is, again, take the 4 top screws off and the 2 side screws on each side. Pull the chassis out. Of course, please disconnect it from power. Do not touch the capacitors because you could get yourself a nasty shock. And you want to take the tubes out, all 7 of them, all 4 power, all 3 preamp tubes. Take them out before you start touching stuff. Just want to make sure everyone's safe. And then what you're going to need is you're going to need some 90% isopropyl alcohol and Q-tips. And what you're going to do is you're going to be cleaning, and they're easily accessible. You don't have to take anything else apart. You're going to be cleaning the tube sockets. The way that this thing was manufactured overseas is they just slapped a bunch of flux on it, and then they started soldering. Well, as this amp goes through hot, cold cycles, the flux heats up, the solder heats up, and the flux actually becomes conductive. And so you'll get tubes that'll start arcing within themselves, and you'll get red plating or hot plating on your tubes, and that's what actually causes a lot of issues with these whenever an output transformer goes bad, or they start making weird noise, or you notice this amp is eating tubes. That's why. Your flux inside is very conductive at that point because of how they made it. It's not necessarily a design flaw, but more or less just the people putting them together just slapped on flux and didn't bother to do a neat job. So you're going to get isopropyl alcohol, 90%, and Q-tip and alcohol, and really give the solder joints and the tube sockets on the inside of the circuit board a really good clean on the preamp tubes and the power amp tubes. Those sockets, I should say. And you'll see all the flux around it turns kind of brown and gunky. It looks kind of crusty. Clean that up really well. Once you get that flux that inevitably will become conductive cleaned up, you won't have any more of that arcing within the tube itself, and it'll make sure that everything's nice and stable. That's what I've done with this, and I've had zero issues since doing that cleaning of the tube sockets. Very simple to do, easy maintenance, no problem. Since doing that, like I said, I've had zero problems with this thing. I would gig this thing. I'd take it anywhere now. It's totally reliable. It's fine. The speaker that I put in this thing is a WGS Warehouse Guitars ET65. It's my personal favorite speaker. I love the ET65. You're going to hear it in a second. I'll give you clean, dirty, all of it. I'm going to tell you what the EQ settings are in the amp real quick. I've got the clean, the normal channel volume at about 3. When I switch to gain, I've got the gain at about 8 and the volume at about 4. Reverb's at 3. I like a little bit of reverb, and the reverb in this thing is a spring reverb. It's a good reverb. Bass is at 9. Middle's at about 5, 6. And treble's at 8. The numbers on this for reference go to 12. They go 0 to 12. So those numbers are where everything's at. I do have a little patch cable connecting the send and return for the effects loop. I just find that it doesn't necessarily make it sound better. It's just one less thing I got to think about if the effects loop starts acting a little funny. It's just something I do. You don't have to. Aside from the speaker swap and the tube swap and giving this thing a really good clean, I haven't done anything else to it, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. I'm going to now play, and you can hear what it sounds like. So this is bridge pickup clean. You'll notice that there is no hum coming from this amp, but we're on. Zero hum. Cleaning those tube sockets and putting a good tube set, again, I put tongue soles in here, really helps. So here's bridge pickup clean. And then I'm going to pick a little harder so you can hear it does kind of dig in a little bit. Nice reverb. I have the reverb set a little bit dramatically so you can hear that it is a really nice reverb. Single note stuff comes through really nicely too. Really nice. Here's middle position clean. Nice. Bridge. Excuse me, that's the neck pickup, not the bridge. Works really good if you need to do any kind of jazz riffing. Here's just some little jazz stuff. And again, just like all the rest on a neck pickup, Again, single note stuff comes through just fine, no problem. Right? Now, I'm not going to adjust the EQ at all. We're going to go to gain. We're back on the bridge. And again, very, very little noise, virtually none. If you were to gig, this would be the quietest amp you've got. Pretty nice. Single note. Middle position. And neck. Right? Back to clean. I find for my uses personally, it's a good pedal platform amp. I don't really use the dirty on this amp much, but if you had to, obviously work in a pinch, you know, if it came down to where I needed to do a gig and all I was allowed to bring was a guitar and an amp, I could pull it off with this. The drive's usable enough. The reverb in it's fine. I actually really enjoy the reverb. It takes pedals really well. What my experience is with this thing taking pedals personally is putting something in it like a Timmy, a Greer Lightspeed, a Benson preamp, you know, even a Klon type pedal, right? The Tumnus is wonderful. I really like the Tumnus Mini. You know, any of those kind of things, perfect, wonderful. It takes, you know, reverbs, delays, choruses, any of the modulation stuff really well. The effects loop in it is really good. I like to put delays and reverbs in there. You can obviously send them front of amp. If you're going to do that, I recommend don't use the spring reverb in the amp. Because the spring reverb in the amp is pretty stout. Again, you can hear that. And it just stopped. And that's only the reverb on like 3. So it's a pretty stout reverb in this thing. So just be careful with it. If you guys have any questions or want any further information on this thing, like I said, to get this thing sounding really good, and I think that's a really good clean sound myself, speaker swap to an ET65 from WGS, retube it with some tongue soles or the tubes you like, and then clean those tube sockets. That's the biggest thing I can recommend to you. It'll save you from having to replace tubes in this thing all the time. It'll save you from red plating, destroying your output transformer, your power transformer, any of that stuff. It's going to help you out in the long run. So thanks for watching, everyone. You guys have a great rest of your day. And leave any questions in the comments. Happy to answer. Have a great day.